All right, so we're back to do the second half of the service. To those who, again, apologies for the lighting. Most times we'll definitely have this resolved for next week on the upcoming service that I'll do. Wanted to get this resolved so that it comes across clear, but we'll definitely get this underway or resolved outside of what's going on now. Bear 1 second with me. Let others get the link. Coming back in. Okay. Okay. All right, bear with me. Let others coming back online, joining into the live stream. Making sure. Okay. All right. So we're going to proceed with the second half of the service. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 16. Right. So just to preface, the 15th chapter goes back to the 14th and the 13th, pertaining to idolatry. Now, as we jump into the 16th chapter, the 16th chapter is going to kind of show the punishments that the Most High had for specifically the Egyptians, right? So this kind of highlight us in our time, our exodus, or our time in Egypt and coming out of Egypt, right? So it's going to show you a comparison of how the Most High can judge a nation in comparison how he judges our nation, the nation of Israel, right? And he's using the Egyptian captivity as a focal point, Solomon here, because it was a major captivity for the nation at that time. Right now, what was going on in these last days is probably the biggest or most, incredulous time that we've had as a nation of people, as far as for us being in captivity. And in Egypt, we was just in Egypt, right? Now we scattered everywhere, and we're all feeling the wrath of the captivity wherever we are at, right? But in this 16th chapter, the Most High is going to get into what happened to the Egyptians and how he judged or punished us in comparison to them, right? So this is Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 16, verse 1. It says, therefore, by the like were they punished worthily, and the multitude, and by the multitude of beasts tormented, right? So, you had these other nations who, specifically Egyptians, the Most High judged them and punished them in various different ways, right? You go to the 10 plagues, he had the water turning to blood, he had lice, he had the locusts, he had the flies, he had the frogs, he had darkness. So he used a variety of different ways and methods to show his power, to show his force, right? Whereas, you have other magicians and sorcerers who can do certain things. But again, like we read in Romans, the Most High sometimes wants to show his wrath. He wants to show his force, his power, what he can do as a true and living God, right? So he was able to start off slow with the snake, with the serpent, with Moses, and then just go start building, right? And then it culminated with the death of the firstborn of all Egypt, right? Not just men, not just people, but even the cattle, right? So the Lord was using that to show forth his power. So it's going to go through some of that same thing. So again, it says 16:1, therefore by the like were they punished worthily, meaning the judgment that was upon them They were worthy of it, right? Sometimes people do certain things like what we see here today in these last days, the things that has been done to us as a nation. Those who are doing it have not gotten their punishment yet. But when the punishment comes, nobody can say, oh, that's excessive, or that's just too much. No, they were worthy of that punishment. They're going to be worthy of the judgment that's going to come to them. Same way the Egyptians were worthy of the punishment or the fate that they had back then, same thing is going to happen to modern day Babylon for the judgment, from the judgment of the Most High for what they have done to us as a people, right? I mean, time and time again, we see all different kind of things that happen to us on different kind of scales, and we sit back and we like, oh man, they definitely gonna get locked up, or they definitely gonna get the book thrown at them. Nope, right? They get off with some technicality and some other different thing where it's like, you know what, like they showing now, oh yeah, the brother, he went into the house several times to check out the abandoned house, and you see it coming. It's like, yeah, they're gonna find a way to get those men off for the crime of killing that man while he was jogging, right? And it happened. Yeah, the cops bust up in the brother and the sister's house to serve a search warrant, but they had the wrong house. But they went in there and shot and killed the doggone sister, right? Oh no, they were shooting at us. But you gave in the law to stand your own ground. You chose to come at 12:30 in the night on a drug charge, had the wrong house, and now this woman is dead, right? And sure, you're one of your guys, but that's your own fault. You caused that, right? But nothing's gonna happen because that's kind of what's been happening all along. So as we read this, it says, therefore, by the like, when it says by the like, those who are not just the Egyptians, but anyone who fits into that same category, they were punished worthily, and by the multitude of beasts tormented. So the Most High used animals and different things to torment them for what the crimes that they committed on us back then, right? I'm gonna read this in chapter 12, Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 12, and verse 23. It says, wherefore, whereas men have lived dissolutely and unrighteously, thou hast tormented them with their own abominations, right? So the Most High can use the things that you are doing sinful, abominable, and turn that around and then cause you to be tormented by the same exact thing, right? Isn't that a reverse of fortune? What you thought you was going to be blessed with, you're now going to be cursed with the same things, right? So this is what we're seeing. The Most High even used the animals, right? Let's read on. Back in Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 16, verse 2. It says, instead of which punishment, dealing graciously with thine own people, thou preparest for them meat of a strange taste, even quails to stir up their appetite. So again, we've got, like I said, the Lord is going to distinguish between the two, between the Egyptians and between Israel, of what he did at that time when we were in the land of Egypt, we being in the region of Goshen. So the Lord says, for us, he was gracious, he was merciful. He gave us a strange taste of quails to stir up the appetite, right? You can read this in Numbers, a portion of this in Numbers, and I'm gonna throw this out there as something that others can check out. But Numbers, the 11th chapter and the 31st verse. So Numbers 11:31, it says, and there went forth a wind from the Lord and brought quails from the sea and let them fall by the camp as it were a day's journey on this side, and as it were a day's journey on the other side, round about the camp, and as it were 2 cubits high on the face of it. That's a lot of quails the Most High rained down for, or brought forth from the earth for the children of Israel. It says, and the people stood up all that day and all that night and all the next day, and they gathered quails. He that gathered least gathered 10 Okay, we're back. Salakia. The internet dropped, glitch in the matrix for some reason. But we're back online. Those in the chat, just please text to make sure that the chart, everybody can see this is coming through. Whoever's in the chat on the live stream. All right, Khan water, Yarapa. All right, again, Salakia for that glitch in the matrix, as they say. So where were we? We was in Numbers. Numbers, the 11th chapter and the 31st verse. I linked up with 16 and 2, right? So that shows when the Most High had the quails be brought forth for the children of Israel during the time when we came out of Egypt. And I won't go into it now, but I'll put this out as just a little reading on your own. When you read down in that Numbers, the 11th chapter, the Most High went and destroyed and killed a lot of people after he gave them the quails, right? So the question will be, why did the Most High kill those people? When you read Numbers 11 and 33, said he smote the people, right? Or why did the Most High smite the people back then? So just I want those to check that out as to why that happened. Salakia says that it's buffering. All right, let me just do this 1 second. Con. All right. So I see on the chat that some folks are getting some feedback on the live stream. In the meantime, I would advise just to dial into the teleconference line. Somebody post a teleconference line in the chat for those who don't have it. So if you do have difficulties as it's going on, because on my end, I'm seeing that it's, unless my thing drops, but on my end, it seems that it's coming out. So if it is kind of choppy or what have you, just dial into the live stream. Most High's will moving forward. We should be back, in the school upcoming, where we can at least do the services back in the schools. I know things are starting to be a little bit more fluid and loose, so that we can then have a better situation. So just keep that in mind. If you do have the glitches or freezing or buffering, as I'm seeing, just dial into the teleconference line. The line is going smooth over there, and as it comes in, we hope it clears up, right? But again, moving forward, we'll work this. I'll try to work this and get this taken care of. Salakia to those out there. So again, verse 2 links with Numbers 11 and 31. So moving over to verse 3, it says, to the end that they, desiring food, might, for the ugly sight of the beast sent among them, loathe even that which they must needs desire, but these, suffering penury for a short space, might be partakers of a strange taste, right? So it says, to the end that they, talking about the Egyptians, desiring food, they needed to eat. But remember, one of the plagues that the Most High put on the Egyptians was that he was going to have their cattle, their beasts, run rampant throughout their land, right? And it was killing and smiting and doing all kind of things to the people, right? So the same animals that they needed to eat, they now loathed, they hated them, right? So it was like, dang, man, we got to go eat these animals, but the animals is like got a new spirit in them and they're wilding out on us, right? Because that was one of the plagues. So it says, to the end that they, Egyptians, desiring food, might for the ugly sight of the beast sent among them, loathe even that, right? Which they must needs desire. They needed to eat. They needed to have some of this flesh. But now it switches gears. It says, but these, talking about Israel, suffering penury or for the lack thereof, meaning it's what you have, you don't have it anymore. It's like something has been taken away from you. For a short space, might be partakers of a strange taste. So the Most High purposely has certain things withheld to now go and bring something better later on, right? For the children of Israel. It says, for it was a requisite, or it was necessary, that upon them, talking about the Egyptians, exercising tyranny should come penury, right? Or they would be destitute, right? Meaning they would lack, that they would now be impoverished, right? Because they deserved it. Remember, the first verse says that they were punished worthily. So the things that would happen to them, the Egyptians, because of their tyranny, they needed, that was a judgment the Most High had to come on them, was that penury. So they would then become destitute. They were impoverished as a people, right? But then it says, which they could not avoid. There was no way that the Egyptians were going to be able to get out of that judgment or that fate, that punishment that the Most High will put on them. But it says, but to these, talking about Israel, it should only be showed how their enemies were tormented, right? So on our end, you read Exodus during the times of the plagues, the Most High had it where he had a separation where those things didn't happen to Israel. It only happened to the Egyptians, right? So here, what he's talking about, that it should only be showed how our enemies. So we watched and seen and heard, but we never felt the effects of what the Most High was doing to the Egyptians, right? We had a different type of admonishment and chastising that was coming on us that was different from what the Egyptians would go through. Remember, the Lord said that he had respect unto Israel, right? Even told Pharaoh that, right? Listen, this is my people, let them go. So he was definitely going to deal with us in a different manner than how he was going to deal with them, especially when they were now tyrannical over us. It started out great when you read Exodus, the first chapter, right? The old Pharaoh, he dealt kindly with us, brought us in, and we were situated. Then a new Pharaoh came and got fearful. The Most High put a different spirit in him, and he treated us in a manner in which happened, right? So now, moving on, it says, verse 5, but when the horrible fierceness, it's a lot, but when the horrible fierceness of beasts came upon these, they perished with the stings of crooked serpents, thy wrath endured not forever, right? So it says here now, when we now went through the fierceness of the beast, like how the Most High judged the Egyptians and put the animals throughout their country running and rampant and doing everything else. But now when we had to be subject to the kind of same type of chastisement, it was a bit different, right? It says, I'm reading 5 again, for when the horrible fierceness of beasts came upon these, and they perished with the stings of crooked serpents, thy wrath endured not forever. Meaning, he didn't have it enduring judgment that this was going to be a thing that was going to continuously happen to Israel. No. So when you read this in Numbers, the 21st chapter, Numbers, the 21st chapter, this is good history here too, pertaining to what we see now happening here today. So in Numbers 20, I'm sorry, what did I say? 22, 21, not 22. Numbers, the 21st chapter. And the 6th verse, Numbers 21 and 6. It says, and the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and much people of Israel died, right? So it wasn't that this was just a light thing. You had people who got bit by these serpents, these snakes, and they died, right? You understand what happens when you got venomous cobras and vipers and rattlesnakes and all those different types of things bite you. The venom that's in there could kill an individual if you don't have the anti-venom, right? So and those fiery serpents. And when they say fiery, in my mind, they had a different spirit in them than just your regular old cobra and things of that nature, right? Verse 7. Therefore, the people came to Moses and said, we have sinned, for we have spoken against Yahweh and against thee. Pray unto the Lord that he take away the serpents from us. And Moses prayed for the people, right? So now after they realized that this judgment came upon them because they disobeyed the Most High, they went back to Moses to say, can you go and advocate for us that we repent, we're sorry, if he can stop this from happening. Verse 8. And the Lord said unto Moses, make thee a fiery serpent and set it upon a pole, and it shall come to pass that everyone that is bitten, when he looketh upon it, shall live. And Moses made a serpent of brass and put it on a pole, and it came to pass that if a serpent had bitten any man, when he beheld the serpent of brass, he lived, right? So here it is. Now the Most High was sending these serpents to bite the children of Israel. Some of them was dying, right? So the Lord told Moses, make it a pole, get a staff, and make a brazen serpent on the staff. And it so happens that when anyone look upon it that was bitten, then they shall live, right? Because again, let's not get it confused. Because I know what some people may be saying, like, ho. We just read in the past chapters that the Most High said that we shouldn't worship any graven images and things of that nature, right? But now how is it the Most High has a staff, a brazen staff with a serpent on it, and now people gonna go and get? Let's find out, right? Let's understand what is now happening here, right? So this was what the Most High commanded Moses to tell the children of Israel. This is not what man went and did and contrived of his own accord and then wanted to go and now make his own practices to go and worship. The Lord is telling us to go and do this, but it still comes with some level of context, right? That's what we're going to get, some bit of understanding out of this. So now let's go back to Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 16, right? As we read down, it's going to get even more clear. So again, verse 5 again. For when the horrible fierceness of beasts came upon these, and they perished with the stings of crooked serpents, thy wrath endured not forever. But they were troubled for a small season, that they might be admonished, having a sign of salvation to put them in remembrance of the commandment of thy law. For he that turned himself toward it was not saved by the thing that he saw, but by thee. Thou art the Savior of all, right? So that was the key, right? So when this happened, it wasn't that when the serpent was there and they looked upon it that the serpent was saving them. No, it was the Most High by that vessel or by that thing that was saving them, not the vessel itself, right? And that goes across for anything, right? Because when you jump to, matter of fact, stay in your pocket, go to Ecclesiasticus. Go to the book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 38. Right? Ecclesiasticus chapter 38, right? To put this in another level of context as it pertains to what the Most High had Moses do with the serpent on the brazen thing, right? It says, Ecclesiasticus chapter 38, verse 1, honor a physician with the honor due unto him for the uses which he may have of him, for the Lord have created him. So we know a physician is a person who is being, his place or his purpose is to go and help the sick, those who have ailments or different problems, right? He is supposed to help them. So now what happens is when people fall into a disease or a broken leg or something like that, they have to go and see the physician / doctor to now do what? Get them back together. And now here it is, you sitting with an ailment, you don't know what it is, and your whole life is in the hand of this physician. Some people now give the physician all the glory and all the honor if he now has saved somebody or he's done this in the auspices of science. Science did this, right? But here it is, we're reading that the Most High, the same way he told Moses to go and create that pole with the serpent on it, to create that, he's saying, look, I created the physician, right? Reading on, it says, for of the Most High cometh healing, and he shall receive honor of the king. So the Lord said, I created him, and I'm going to give him the power or the wisdom or the skill to go and heal somebody, right? The physician is not of his own. The physician just because he goes and reads books that he's able to do that because he read a book and science tells him that he could do that. Nah, right? In this case, when you read in ancient times, a real physician, a man of the Most High, as they say, a man of the cloth, they had a different perspective on how they did their practice, right? You can read all the way down through it because it has some good information about medicines out of the earth and so forth and so on. But there's a piece that I want to get to that stays in line with what we're talking about. So read on down and jump to verse 12. Right? It's going to reiterate what I just said. It says, then give place to the physician, for the Lord hath created him. Let him not go from thee, for thou hast need of him. There is a time when in their hands there is good success, for they shall also pray unto the Lord, that he would prosper that which they give for ease and remedy to prolong life, right? So understanding what is being said here, right? You're going to have the physician, the Most High has created him, but in their hand, there's times where it's going to be fortunate. They're going to do their just due. They're going to be able to heal someone. Then there's times where they are not, right? So it lets you know that they don't hold the cards, right? So it says, next verse says that they even have to go and pray to the Most High that he would use them to exercise the will to go and help and heal somebody. So these physicians knew that it was not of them, that it still started and ended with the Most High, right? This is the same thing that now during Moses' time, he has that brazen serpent with the snake on it. And he says, the Most High says, any one of you, if you look upon this, you should be healed, right? Who said it? The Most High. Who's causing them to be healed? The Most High. You got to follow the commandment. Look upon that staff and you will be healed. If you didn't look upon the staff and you look somewhere over here and over there, you wasn't going to be healed. You was going to continuously die. All those people got bit was going to die. So that was the key. That was the focus point. Now we had to go and look at that staff, right? So now when you look at today's society, started years back, when you look at ambulances, some fire trucks, right? They have that symbol of the staff with the serpent on it because they're supposed to do what? Go out and heal people, save lives from death, right? They're getting it right here from the scriptures, right? This is the beginning of these things that we see sometimes in the earth. So now, not to be remiss, let's fast forward. Go to the John, the 3rd chapter. St. John, the 3rd chapter. St. John 3 and 14. St. John 3 and 14. So now it says, and as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness, even so much the Son of Man be lifted up, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life, right? So now in the same context of how the Most High set up Moses to make that staff, and the people were healed when they looked upon it, now Christ now needs to be in that same fashion, but higher, that if you believe on Christ as it is written in the scriptures and you follow his commandments that he was given to him by the Father, then you now would live, being bitten by the snares of the world, so that you can live and not fall down death or dying because of these things. It's now spiritual, right? So now when you have this as the new object or the new thing, the new vessel to be looked upon, you can now live. Why? Because the Most High is the one who said it, right? Go to Matthew 17. Matthew 17 and 5. So it says in Matthew 17 and 5, this is speaking about now when the Most High is coming to visit Peter, James, and John during the transfiguring, during Yahushua. It says, while he yet spake, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them. And behold, a voice out of the cloud which said, this is my beloved son in whom I am well pleased. Hear ye him. Right? So now the Most High is again giving the commandment, giving the order like he did Moses, say, hey, this is what you now have to go do. Look upon this. Now he's saying, and now in the future after that, this is my son, hear ye him. So the things that he taught, that's what we now had to follow in order to live, right? That's why I said this is his words are a quickening spirit. It makes you alive. You were once dead. Now you are alive because of Yahweh or Jesus Christ in the English, right? So that's the key. Not, and I'm going to throw this out there because, a lot of times people, try to use the Bible in congruence with other things. You can't do that, right? I'm speaking to some of my, because this came to my mind, some of my Islamic brothers, people who are into Islam or to Muslim, they'll say that Muhammad is the last great prophet, right? If we don't accept him, then X, Y, and Z. Well, that was never said in the scriptures like the Most High just said about Yahweh or Jesus Christ. He never came afterward and said that this was going to happen to this individual. Now, some will say, oh, yeah, that's the reason because, the Bible stops at a certain point in time and then the Quran adds on to what was left. No, it don't. Because the Bible gives you the beginning, the middle, and the ending, right? The Quran never speaks about the ending that the Bible even speaks about. So why wouldn't the Most High left out a critical piece of another person coming, but speaks about the end of days, speaks about the wars, the Third World War, speaks about what's going to happen after the Third World War, speaks about the judgment that's going to happen in the kingdom of the Most High. Why would he leave that important piece out of the Bible that's already complete? And as far as for the information that's given, right? So think about that because it says that we were supposed to hear the Son, which is Jesus Christ. Now, for those who are watching, who are listening, who are saying, nah, brother, you got it wrong. You're not paying it. You're missing some pieces. Again, call us up. We have Tuesdays and Fridays classes that you can call us up and ask questions, bring forth your evidence, bring forth your scriptures, bring forth your proof to make this null and void, right? That's the key. That's what we all, throughout the four corners, all of our brothers, we do the same thing. We entertain going through with reason, like man to man, not with emotion, but with reason to go through and break down these precepts and these scriptures. All right. So now let's go back to Wisdom of Solomon, the 16th chapter. We at verse 4 now. I'm sorry, not 4. 7. I'm looking at 7 and saying 4. We at Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 16, verse 7. It says, for he that turned himself toward it was not saved by the thing that he saw, but by thee that are the Savior of all. And in this thou madest thine enemies confess that it is thou who deliverest from all evil, right? So it says, and in the same context, like how it was happening during the time of Moses with the serpent, who the Most High was the one who was saving, he forced the enemies to see the same thing, right? When the Most High was putting them plagues on them, it forced the Egyptians to recognize and see that the Most High is a true and living power. When he was killing their firstborn son, it forced them to say, you know what? Your power is a power. Y'all leave, go. Because that's what the Most High requested from Pharaoh from the beginning. Let my people leave here and come worship me in the wilderness, right? And if you don't, I'm going to do all these different things. I'm going to do that. It forced them to realize that, oh, y'all was right. Your God is a God. Your God is a true and living God. Go, right? And then the Most High still hardened his heart and changed his spirit to exercise his wrath and to show forth his power, right? As a testimony, even for the children of Israel. Because those things that happened to the Egyptians, like we just read, but to these in the verse 4, last precept in verse 4, but to these it should be only be showed how the enemies were tormented. To see how the Most High did that was a miracle in itself, right? To see vessels of water all turn to blood, to see frogs all over their land, to see locusts come and decimate their crops, to see animals and beasts rampant and ranting, to see darkness where you got light and you still don't have any light in the darkness, right? Then to kill the firstborn of not just the people, but the animals. Then to go forth when you leaving to separate the waters and to have a whole like a red car, like all this as we were seeing it, those who were righteous and spiritual in mind, you had to be you're like, man, I've never ever seen anything like this ever. I probably never ever see anything like this again. This is on a high level I can ever imagine. That our God, man, you had to be selfish and happy and on cloud 9, cloud 12. Forget now, you're on cloud 12 saying, look at the God I got behind me. And then those wicked spirits still went and did what they did, right? But again, this is showing that the Most High has mercy, enduring for us, right? So reading on, verse 9. For them, the bitings of grasshoppers and flies killed, talking about the Egyptians, for them. So that's what you got to be careful of. When you're reading this chapter, them and they flip-flop. Them is talking about the other nation. They is talking about this nation, Egypt, Israel, right? So don't get it confused that it's talking about the same thing. You got to make sure to follow the context. Again, verse 9. For them, the bitings of grasshoppers and flies killed, neither was there found any remedy for their life, for they were worthy to be punished by such. Same thing that it says in the first verse of this chapter. They received the punishment that was worthy for them, right? So the grasshoppers and the flies and all that, you can read that in Exodus, the 8th chapter, Exodus, the 10th chapter, right? Go through those chapters and find and link up the actual verses of precepts. I think Exodus 10 and 3 goes for the flies, and Exodus 8, 20 on goes for the grasshoppers or locusts, what it's really getting into for what's going on. But go through on your own time and read to put the precepts in there. I'm all about making sure that Israel is able, when those who are listening in the classes or listening to these Sabbath services, that not only do you just get brothers such as myself, Zaquan, Paquad, Nabi Yah, Yahweh Kanan, so forth and so on, Ariyah is getting groomed, that you not only just listen like it's a lecture, right? That you are now arming yourself with the tools to be able to also know how to go in and study and figure certain things out, right? A lot of times you have questions. Take the time first to go and try to see if you can find the answers to the questions through the scriptures through your own diligence, right? Go and check it out. And sometimes you got a question like, oh, let me just call the brothers. I'm going to call them. And the answer's right there. You just didn't read 2 verses down. If you'd have read 2 verses down, you'd have found the answer. But sometimes we just lazy and rely so much on someone else just easily just feeding you the answers. No, sometimes you got to be skilled and astute to want to go and figure it out, study on it, go back and forth, sleep on it, pray on it, and then come back. And then after all you can't find, then you say, okay, well, I'm going to come to the brothers and bring it to the class and check it out. Not just write down a question and just, I'm not even going to go and do the research. That's being lazy. So now going back, Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 16, verse 10. It says, but thy sons, not the very teeth of venomous dragons overcame, for thy mercy was ever by them and healed them, right? So again, like we read, these things didn't happen to us. Right? We didn't have to or fall victim to the things that we were seeing that was going on over in the land of Egypt. That didn't happen to us in the land of Goshen in our captivity by the Egyptians. The Most High kept us separated. It says in verse 11, for they were pricked that they should remember thy words, and were quickly saved, that not falling into deep forgetfulness, thy might be continually mindful of thy goodness. So when it says that they were pricked, that means it's like the Most High hit you here and smack your hand and do something here and do something here, raise up a savior, you get to come back, so forth and so on, right? He didn't leave us out there like how we went and dealt with the Egyptians and they was forgotten. He left them alone, right? They have not been a prominent force since, right? Since the ancient biblical days, the Egyptians, who are not the Most High's people, have not been a force, right? As a people, right? When you read the precepts, when you read the history, those things that happened to the children of Israel happened to us. When we look at the history, the things that the Most High prophesied would happen to us is still happening to us as a people. He didn't say it was going to happen to the Egyptians, what happens to us right now. We was reading in Deuteronomy 28. The Lord didn't say that was happening to the Egyptians. It's not happening to them now. It hasn't happened to them for hundreds of years. So how are we now all of a sudden Kemetic, right? How are we now from Egypt? How are we from these places? And it does not fit any real historical records. When brothers go back to the Metu Neter and they're reading these things and they're reading what happened or what was written in these manuscripts back then. These manuscripts do not identify us of who we are today, what our characteristics are today, what our mannerisms are today, what our geographical location would be today, what form of captivity we will be in today. It does not do that. No other form of book does that except for the Bible. So when we get into these dialogues, sometimes it's fruitless and pointless that we getting into, certain little minute aspects, and all they're doing is just trying to make a case to have a debate. But it's simple, right? Show me where I am in those manuscripts. Show me my history in those manuscripts and those doctrines. That's just not for them. That's for any of these other philosophies and doctrines, right? Again, for those who are watching, who are a follower, or who's just somebody brought him in, or you listening, if you have a case or a claim, dial up, call us up on the classes. It's Tuesdays and Friday nights, 7 to 10, right? That's what we're here for. That's what we want to now break the bread, right? Yahushua broke bread with the disciples to kind of get into and have conversations. That's what we do. We spiritually want to break bread with brothers and sisters to find out what they eating, to see if they eating polluted, which the majority of us have been eating polluted food. Let's come back and eat the real good spiritual food, spiritual meat from the Most High and Yahushua. All right. So now back in Wisdom of Solomon 16, it says, verse 11 again, it says, for they were pricked that they should remember thy words, and were quickly saved, that not falling into deep forgetfulness, they might be continually mindful of thy goodness. Verse 12, for it was neither herb nor mollifying plaster that restored them to health, but thy word, O Lord, which healeth all things. Right? That's the same thing we was just reading to a certain degree in Ecclesiasticus 38, where it says it wasn't the physician that's healing, it's the Most High that's healing, right? So here in this context, it cuts right to the point. It's the word that heals us, right? You can link this with one of my favorites in Psalms 119. Psalms 119. And verse 9. Psalms 119 in verse 9. And then I'm going to hit one also in Matthew's. Chapter 4. So Psalms 119 verse 9 says, wherewithal shall a young man cleanse his way, right? So the error in your way, right? When you've gone amiss, when you've done abominable things, you've been a murderer, fornicator, a pedophile, whatever different type of sinful, wicked deeds or acts that you've done, it says, wherewithal shall a young man cleanse his way. How do you get yourself on the right path? How do you fix yourself, right? It says, by taking heed thereto according to thy word, right? By going to the precepts as it is written, and then taking heed. When it says taking heed, it means you follow. You just don't read and see it. That means you are now following or doing what is spoken of in the scriptures. That means you keep the dietary laws. That means you keep the ceremonious laws, right? Because it's written in the word of the Most High. Again, that's why I'm mentioning certain groups, but having just dealt with a previous case. For instance, my Muslim brothers, they deal with the Bible. Some of them will deal with the Torah only. Right? They're wholehearted. So listen, we believe in certain things. We believe in the first 5 books. No, you don't, because you don't take heed to what's written in those books, meaning you don't do them. They're not keeping the feast days. They're not keeping the dietary laws as it is written. They make even stipulations on dietary food, that if you don't have any other food, then you can go and eat that food that's abominable. Most High never said that in the law. He never said don't eat swine's flesh, but if you have no other clean food, then you can eat swine's flesh, or then you can eat shrimps and skin. No, right? They don't follow or take heed to what's written in the word. That separates the true believers from those who are just fly-by-nighters, or who just walk with that talk of lip service. It's not because they don't read the scriptures. They're going off of man say, right? So it says that's how you cleanse your way, by taking heed to the word of the Most High. That's how you make yourself capable of being alive. Matthew 4, verse 4. This is what Christ said. Matthew's the 4th chapter and the 4th verse. It says, but he answered and said, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Most High God. Right? So that's clear, right? That's how you live. The bread, okay, sure, it's going to be able to allow your body to function. But the most important piece in the body that functions is your spirit. Right? How do you feed the spirit? What are you feeding the spirit with? Right? That's kind of where we get into the realm of food for thought. What are your thoughts? Where do they come from? What makes you think a certain way? Which makes you do a certain thing? Oh, well, you know, my grandmama told me such and such. Well, where did she hear that from? Where did she get that from? Where did that teacher get that from? Did it come from the word? Let's see. Let's search the scriptures, as Yahweh Shah say, because in them, this is what life's supposed to be. If it ain't in here, then I don't know what to say. That's kind of the mind state of the every word of the Most High is how we live concept, right? So now let's go back to Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 16. We have verse 13 now. It says, for thou hast power of life and death. Thou leadest to the gates of hell and bringest up again, right? So the Most High held, you know, we used to say when the kids were screaming, when we was kids, we taught that old, we got the whole world in his hands. He got the whole wide world, everything in the earth, everything in the world, different kingdoms, different empires, different regions. The Most High controls it. Nothing is going on in the earth that the Most High has not sanctioned or allowed or prophesied, right? Certain things have to happen in a manner in order to set the next things up, right? Things that's going on now is setting the things that most people can't see that's coming in the next month, that's coming in the next days, right? So again, the Lord has control of all of this. Go to Deuteronomy 32. Deuteronomy 32. And verse 39. So Deuteronomy 32, 39, it says, see now that I, even I am he, and there is no God with me, or false God, or idol, or anything that's on the level of the Most High. I kill, and I make alive. I wound, and I heal. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. For I lift up my hand in heaven, and I say, I live forever. So the Most High is in control of what we see as destiny and things of that nature happening in the earth. No one can deliver out of the Most High's hand, out of the Most High's hand. So that's why it says that he has the power of life and death, and he can lead into the gates of hell or destruction, or he can take someone up out of it, right? When you read in Samuel's, matter of fact, let me get that real quick. First Samuel's, the 2nd chapter, kind of going to say the same thing, just a little bit differently. First Samuel's 2 and verse 6. So we're in verse 13. We read Deuteronomy 32, 39. Now we're in 1 Samuel 2 and 6. It says, the Lord killeth and maketh alive. He bringeth down to the grave and bringeth up. The Lord maketh poor and maketh rich. He bringeth low and lifteth up. He raiseth up the poor out of the dust and lifted up the beggar from the dunghill, to set them among princes and to make them inherit the throne of glory. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and he has set the world upon them. Right? So when you read on, it goes into, I read the 9th verse. He will keep the feet of his saints, and the wicked shall be silent in darkness. For by strength shall no man prevail. So no one has the authority or power over the Most High's destiny or will, what he wants to happen in the earth, right? So again, he can raise you up. he can bring you down, right? For us right now, it's not known widely, but for us right now who are in this truth, he's raised us up through the scriptures, right? We're not boasting. We're not going out there to the churches and saying, oh, the Most High shows in me. I got more wisdom than you. I know more precepts than you. No, right now, it's a blessing to know who we are. So it's a blessing to know from whence we came in our history. It's a blessing to know what is coming, right? The hope of our salvation is coming soon. It's a blessing just to have that, right? Then we share it, right, amongst others within our nation to go and try to get them on board, to get them on track, right? So, but we know all of this is because of the Most High and his control. He can give it to you and he can take it away if you don't keep his or take heed unto his word, right? Reading on, verse 14, Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 16. It says, a man indeed killeth through his malice, and the spirit, when it is gone forth, returneth not, neither the soul receiveth cometh again. So we kind of read this before in the last chapter, right? A man will go out there and kill, you know, for whatever anger or whatever disagreement he may have. You see that happen. You wake up on the news, someone shot on this block, someone got shot on that block, and they gone, right? They're not to come back again, right? Spirit is going to go up to the Most High, to the Father. It's never to come back again. That's what we read in Ecclesiastes 12:7, right? It says, but it is not possible to escape thine hand, right? So it is possible to escape that person who's trying to kill you, man, right? You may know somebody looking for you. You can get in your car and drive to another city, another state, another country, right? But when it comes to the Most High and he wants to get with you or deal with you, you can't escape that. You can't escape that judgment, right? And then once that judgment is set upon you, they need to have the sister song playing in the background when that judgment is coming as a theme song. Nowhere to run to, baby. There's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to hide. You can't escape. You can't go down into the, like how sometimes these sort of nations build these bunkers and they try to go down into the depths to escape, you know, the radiation is going to come from the nuclear destruction, or they're going to escape this thing. You can't escape it. The judgment is going to happen. While you sitting there and the radiation is all going throughout the earth, all of a sudden you catch a heart attack, right? Or you catch a convulsion, and you're like, dang, I thought I escaped that, but here it is. I'm still going to get punished or judged. That's the key, right? It says, verse 16, for the ungodly that denieth to know thee was scourged by the strength of thine arm, and strange rains, hails, and showers were they persecuted, that they could not avoid, and through fire they were consumed. So when the Most High during the time of the Egyptian was raining down hail, right? The hail was coming down with fire around it, right? And we know hail to be cold like ice balls, ice droplets coming down from the sky. But when it came down with fire on them, destroying the stuff up, right? So it was a whole different type of thing that the Most High was doing back then, right? And he's going to do something different continually, even in these last days. So I'm going to read it again. For the ungodly that denied to know thee was scourged by the strength of thine arm. When he's talking about his arm, I mean his power, his force, his skills to be able to manipulate and do what he wants with the elements and the things that he has at his disposal. It says, with strange rains, hails, and showers were they persecuted, that they could not avoid, and through fire were they consumed. Verse 17, for which is most to be wondered at, the fire had more force in the water that quencheth all things, for the world fighteth for the righteous. Check this out, right? So as the Most High is doing these things, and we're talking about fire, we're talking about water, we're talking about hail and showers and different things, right? All of these things, as they're now working, have like a spirit, and they are operating to defend the righteous, right? Let me get this. Go to Ecclesiasticus chapter 39 to kind of explain what we're talking about here. Ecclesiasticus chapter 39, and I'm going to start from 29. Ecclesiasticus chapter 39, verse 29, right? In the Apocrypha. So it says, fire and hail and famine and death and all these were created for vengeance, right? Remember, they say God is love, but the Most High created them for vengeance, to go with his anger that he has on the people that's in the earth, right? So again, fire and hail and famine and death are all these were created for vengeance. This is his arm that he's talking about. Verse 30, teeth of wild beasts and scorpions, serpents, and the sword, punishing the wicked to destruction. Remember, we're reading about the ungodly and what the Most High brought on them. Same thing here. Verse 31, it says, they shall rejoice in his commandment. The they is everything that we just read. The fire and the hail and the teeth of the animals and all this. It says, they shall rejoice in his commandment, and they shall be ready upon the earth when need is. And when their time is come, they shall not transgress his word. So when the Most High goes and commands the elements and things, the animals and different things to do his will, they operate. They don't buck up. They don't say, what? Nah, Most High, I'm going to quench that fire when it comes in the water. No, I'm going to melt that ice when it's coming down from heaven with the... No, they don't do that. They righteously go and execute the Most High's word. So that's what happened to the Egyptians during the time of our captivity. The Most High said, you know what? Speaking to the elements, don't even illuminate. Just leave them with pitch black darkness. And here it is. They lighten torches, tiki torches or whatever. They lighten them. And guess what? The elements is not going to obey man. The elements is going to obey the Most High. So what happens? Even within the light, there was no, even within the darkness, there was no light. Even when they tried to do it, turn on a flashlight, turn on, nothing was going to go against the Most High's word back then that was coming on the Egyptians. So even the earth, when it talks about the earth, is talking about the natural elements, obey the Most High as his arm to bring forth his will and his judgment, right? And they're doing this to defend and fight for the righteous. That's what we're reading in Wisdom of Solomon, right? So the Lord can bring the, you know how they say Mother Nature? Yeah, the Most High can get quote unquote Mother Nature to come and side with one people, one nation, and fight for just them. That's what we're reading here, right? Go back to Wisdom of Solomon 16. Let's read this again. Wisdom of Solomon chapter 16, verse 17. For which is most to be wondered at, the fire have more force in the water that quencheth all things, for the world fighteth for the righteous, right? So the world, the Most High has everything fighting in defense for us. And it changed its natural scope or its natural characteristics to come together to bring forth this judgment. Verse 18, for sometime the flame was mitigated, that it might not burn up the beast that was sent against the ungodly. Pause. So the Most High got all this fire burning up the Egyptian in their houses, but at the same time, he got the animals and the beast running rampant to go and execute his judgment. So now while they're going through and there's fires there, the Most High does what? Has the fire mitigate, goes down and stops to allow these animals to go and do their judgment that they're supposed to execute, right? And then when they're done, boom, the fire comes back. So that's why it says it was most to be wondered at. If you were sitting from a bird's eye view, just sitting down and watching these things happen, right? You would be like, yo, this is crazy. Did you see how that just transformed? Did you see how that just did that? You see how the Most High had the thing come to the side and then the animals came and it came back? You like, it'd be on another level. And that's how we're reading it. So now with the imagination of what was going on, we can go run wild with it, right? It says verse 19, and at another time it burneth even in the midst of the water above the power of fire, that it might destroy the fruits of an unjust land, right? So again, it's changing the characteristics, the normal characteristics of fire and water and ice and this and that. in order to execute the Most High's judgment on that in the land of the Egyptians, right? And it happens, or has happened, in other different times throughout the different generations and empires. But this was the greatest story told, or is the greatest story told thus far, like it tells you in Jeremiah, the 16th chapter, about the deliverance of the children of the north. And it shall no more be said, because it's going to be another great one. So put that in context, right? How we're reading how the Most High changed these things back then, what we are embarking on now is going to trump that, right? Let me read that real quick. Jeremiah 16. So that should now start to prepare your hearts, prepare your minds for what you're about to see, right? They saw this back then during the time of the Egyptian captivity. Israel saw this, so bear witness to it. We're about to bear witness to things that's going to be greater than that, right? So this is Jeremiah, the 16th chapter and the 14th verse. Jeremiah 16:14. It says, therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that it shall no more be said, the Lord liveth that brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. That's what we read now in Wisdom of Solomon, the history pertaining to the intricacies of what actually happened back then that's not widely known. People just read Exodus and certain aspects of Exodus, watch the 10 Commandments with Charlton Heston, and just go off of that. There was much more things intricate that happened during that time. So now if you're a reader of the scriptures, your eyes are more open to what happened back then. But now it says, therefore, behold, the days cometh, said the Lord, that it shall no more be said, the Lord liveth that brought up the children of Israel out of Egypt. We're not going to be talking about this like how we are right now. It says, but verse 15, but the Lord liveth that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north, and from all the lands where he had driven them. So now it gives you context. It says from the land of the north. What are we talking about when it says the land of the north? We're talking about the land of North America, right? The land of North Korea, not the land of North Korea, right? Because we're not over there predominantly over in that region, right? We are predominantly, as a nation, the 12 tribes are in North America. Not only the 12 tribes, but predominantly, collectively, all nations are here in America, North America, right? But it's specifically talking about Israel, the 12 tribes. Then it says, and all other lands where we have been driven. So if we are in Europe, if we are in the UK, if we are in the continent of Africa, if we are in South America, if we are in Australia, if we are some of us remnants sitting up in Russia or in Antarctica, wherever, the Most High is going to get those children of Israelites who are now followers and believers and redeem them, right? Then it says, and from all the lands where he had driven them, and I will bring them again into their land that I gave unto their fathers. That's the promise, to bring us back to our homeland. So again, these things that we're reading, it's not going to be as big as what we're seeing now, right? You got scientists and people kind of awed with this so-called coronavirus, right? And how it mutates and how it does this and how it only attacks certain people, right? It only attacks this person with this, and now all of a sudden it's in your toes, it's in your eyes, it's in your fingers, it's all over the place. It wasn't like that a month ago. Well, yeah, the Most High can do what he wants to do. Where you think you got it lit, you think you got it figured out, no. And then we can see that the Most High can only have it happen to certain people. So why they're like, yeah, but how he got it and he don't got it? Well, he's asymptomatic, but he got it, but they don't like nothing wrong with him, right? People is all had some of this, right? But they don't know that when the Most High brings a judgment out there, he can control it. He can control who he has it come on to, who he has it happen to, right? I'm not getting stuck on, okay, it was done in a lab or the military did it or this, that, and the third. People dying, right? People are dying, thrown into pits and this thing here and there, right? You talk to now it's so close to, you got family members and friends. You're like, yeah, my friend just died this week and that week and this week and that. So we know this thing is real. So regardless of how it started or who started it, remember in Psalm 68:20, all issues of death come from the Most High. So don't give Esau the credit that says, oh, he's doing it. The Most High is allowing these deaths to happen. If he didn't want it to happen, it would not happen. We just read in Samuel, and we just read in Deuteronomy, all issues of death come from him. He make alive and he won't. So don't consider and think that, okay, yeah, they're doing it. You watching the news. Make sure you pay attention to what they're talking about. But remember, the primary focus is on these scriptures. The primary focus is on what the Most High says is happening and about to happen, right? That we give him that glory that says, yep, he died, right? Sure, he shot him. He was wicked for that. He's going to get judged for that. But the Most High had a reason that he died, either for what he did in this life or what he did in another life. I don't know. But the Lord is the one who controlled that. And the Most High is going to judge him as well for what he did. So those cops and these judges and these politicians and all that, they are definitely not getting off scot-free, even though the Most High is causing these deaths. Their judgment is going to be far worse, right? So now let's come back. Let's read Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 16, verse 20. It says, instead, so what the Most High did to the Egyptians, he destroyed them, he killed them, he burnt up their crops, he took all different kind of their, food source and pleasures and everything. He destroyed all of that. Now he's about to shift to Israel. Verse 20. It says, instead of where thou feddest thine own people with angels' food. So while their crops and food and beasts and everything is getting taken away, the Lord is now coming to Israel in Goshen and feeding us with angels' food, manna from heaven. Now, we read about manna in the book of Exodus, right? But let's get intricate. Reading again. Instead whereof thou feddest thine own people with angels' food, and didst send them from heaven bread prepares without their labor, able to content every man's delight, and agreeing to every taste. I'm gonna read this again, right? Because listen, I wouldn't need to go into the supermarket, standing on these long lines and everything else. If I had this, I wouldn't care for none of that other stuff, right? It says this was prepared without labor. I'm gonna read it again. Instead whereof thou feddest thine own people with angels' food, and didst send them from heaven bread prepared without their labor, able to content every man's delight in agreeing to every taste. So whatever your specific taste buds wanted to taste, or what you delighted in, that is what you now were tasting when you were eating this manna, this angel's food from heaven. What I like and what I was tasting when I ate it is not what he liked, not what she liked, not what they liked. Everyone had their own taste buds fulfilled. Imagine that. Man, if you could buy that somewhere, I'm trying to get in the stock. I would give all my money and get that stock, because there's nothing better than that, right? It says, for thy sustenance declare thy sweetness unto thy children, and serving to the appetite of the eater, tempered itself to every man's liking. Look how the Most High took a step above. We haven't seen anything like that since. We have not gone through that as a nation where the Most High fed us manna from heaven, and it subscribed to everyone's individual palate. Right? Right now, because it said this was prepared without labor, now when I'm cooking, right, I'm in my mind thinking what this person like, what that person don't like. You can't get salt over here. You can't get this over here. This person don't like spicy food. This person. So you kind of like that. Most High, I can do it easier than what you can do. I can bring this one thing, and as they eat it, it fulfills everybody's delight. Verse 22. Right? So that's what was dealing with the food that the Most High was bringing us. You can read that in Exodus, the 16th chapter. Go back into the history and read about how the manna came down from heaven, right? And then I think once we got into the land of Canaan, which became the land of Israel, that's when the manna stopped, right? We was following the chariot. The chariot was leading us throughout all different places, and we got to the place, and once we got ourselves established, the manna stopped. Because now we were able to grow our own foods, right? Now the Lord is giving us the land that flow with milk and honey, right? Pomegranates and different things over here. So he said, now, all right, I took you for a while. Now you're going to go and do your own thing, establish and build yourselves up as a nation, right? And one would say, well, why would the Most High stop? Why would he just continue to give us that great food? No, because we still got to be tested, right? Remember, we came out of Egypt, and the Most High did a whole bunch of stuff for us. He fed us manna, and guess what we did? We complained and said, I want flesh now, Most High. That's what you read when you go back to Numbers. I want flesh now. And the Most High was like, what? What are you talking about? I would say that today if we were just getting mad and somebody said, no, I don't want that. I need Popeyes. Popeyes? What are you talking about? You got this great medicine and you want to go over here and get that, you don't know what chemicals in. But Israel did what they did because of the lust that's in our spirits. So some points in times we have to be tried and tested and seeing who's for real, who's really with the Most High and who's not, right? Reading on, verse 22. But snow and ice endured the fire and melted not, that they might know that the fire burning in the hail and sparkling in the rain did destroy the fruits of the enemy. So it's just going more and reiterating on how the Most High was destroying the enemy's land with the elements who were fighting for the righteous, right? It says 23, but this again did even forget his own strength, that the righteous might be nourished, right? So it's just showing you the favor that was shown for one and the hate or the judgment shown for the other, right? Because it now had to alter its characteristics to show favor to one and to destroy another. Verse 24, for the creature that serveth thee, who art the maker, increaseth his strength against the unrighteous for their punishment, and abateth his strength for the benefit of such as put their trust in thee, right? So, there's times where, the Most High can use that same element to destroy someone. And at the same time, when they're in that same element, cause it where it doesn't hurt them. That's what you read in Daniel's, right? When they was in the fiery pit, why didn't the fire burn them up? We see this now because the Most High can alter the elements where it does no harm to you at that moment, whereas on the other side, it will burn you up. It will destroy all of your stuff. Who's in control of this? The Most High. That's where faith comes in. That's why we read these scriptures. It's very important that when we read these stories, that it confirms our faith and our hope in the Most High. Because again, all of us is going to be tested. Me, myself, all of us are going to have to get to that point where we fully trust in the Most High. The things that's coming and the things that are going to come, we have to. I'm looking on the news and they're saying, yeah, the pig factories had to shut down because of COVID, right? Because of the coronavirus. And I was like, in my mind, I'm saying, good, right? They need to have a pig factory, slaughter factory anywhere. But you think about the second and third order of effects of that, right? That's a commodity, unclean, wicked commodity that people eat, right? So now what does that do? It drives up the prices of the other foods. They showed a map on the news of the different states where food is skyrocketing, right? Food is skyrocketing, prices skyrocketing because of the shortages of the food that's now being distributed. Why? Because the plants are closing down, because people are getting infected and they don't want to continue, so they shut the whole operation down. You shut the whole operation down, the demand gets higher, it's caused people to go in a frenzy, and you don't have food. The lines is long for the food banks, right? So you say to yourself, well, Dad, this is getting crazy. How am I going to survive? What are we going to do, right? So that you don't run crazy. That's why we read these stories. That's why we try to confirm our faith with the Most High, because there's going to be a time where you may not be able to go out there and get that stuff. And we see the stories where the Most High took care of his own back then. He caused it where the destruction didn't come to them. He fed them with manna from heaven where they didn't think anything existed. And it came down and it fed them. So in that time, the same things that happened back then, again, is going to happen on a higher level. So when we are in a strait and we can't get around and we're saying, where's the food going to come from? The Most High can give us that manna. The Lord's will, we'll be able to experience it in today's time where you eating and I'm eating. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. It tastes so good. And you're thanking the Most High, right? You're being thankful, grateful for what he has given you, and not ungrateful like some of our ancestors were when we came in the wilderness, right? That's the key. This is to purify your hearts. Again, we're embarking on the end times. We're reading things. We're going through things that we've read for years, and we're now starting to see it unfold. So it's time to firm up our hearts and get our minds in the right perspective, because we in those days. Reading on. It says, I'm going to read 24 again. For the creature that serveth thee, who art the maker, increaseth his strength against the unrighteous for their punishment, and abateth his strength for the benefit of such as put their trust in thee. Therefore, even then was it altered into all fashions, and was obedient to thy grace, that nourisheth all things according to the desire of them that had need. So it's reiterating and it's enforcing it. Remember, sometimes the Most High has to speak repetitively to drive it home, because sometimes one time doesn't get it. Got to say it 2 times and 3 times and 4 times. You know, us as a people, we stubborn, we thick-headed, we don't hear too well. You got to say it over and over and over, right? Even me, I'm getting up there in age. My wife tells me sometimes, I told you that already. You did? Yeah, I told you that before. You listened to it. I was like, oh, I forgot. And they're telling me again, right? So the Lord has to drive the point home with us so that we make sure that we get it. 26. That thy children, O Lord, whom thou lovest, might know that it is not the growing of fruits that nourisheth man, but that it is thy word which preserveth them that put their trust in thee, right? Same thing we read already in Matthew 4:4, right? It is the word of the Most High that man is supposed to live by. If we put our trust in him, then we can survive, we can sustain, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. If we fall away, that's when we get anxious. The anxiety sets in and you're kind of scared and running frigid and you don't know your life is in a balance, right? It's not supposed to be us. We're not supposed to have that spirit of fear where we're fearing everything that's happening. Be wise, be conscious, right? Obey the laws that be, but not to be fearful, right? Where we don't know, and anything that they say, anything that they come up with, because of fear, you just jump into it. No, that's not how we're supposed to operate. That's not how our ancestors operated. We use wisdom of the Most High. We have the scriptures to guide us. We have the Most High to guide us. Use them, right? Verse 27, for that which was not destroyed of the fire, being warmed with the little sunbeam, soon melteth away, that it might be known that we must prevent the sun to give thee thanks, and at the day spring pray unto thee. So this is going into the manner during the time of Exodus, the 16th chapter, where the Most High gave us the ordinance that says, listen, make sure he's going to give us the food during the dew, right? And go and gather the food and eat it and make sure we deal with it. And don't let the sun rise and come and burn up and melt away the manna, right? So that's what this is getting into back then. And then after we got the food, make sure you go show gratitude, right? Make sure you show gratitude for what the Most High has given, especially the angels' food, right? So when you read this, going into the sunbeam and giving thanks, this is going back into that story. Go back to Exodus 16 and read how the Most High gave us the manna, and he gave us specific commandments on how to get it, eat it, and deal with it, and how to make sure it don't sting out into the sun and it's going to stink and all. The Lord gave us all that. And then he told us to be thankful when the sun comes up. That's when we give thankful and praise and honor to him. That's why even today, the food that we get, even though it don't come from heaven, it is of the Most High. That anything we get, we give thanks to the Most High. We break it and give thanks, or thanks and break, and then share amongst each other of what we get, right? That way we give honor back to the Lord that knows that we know, that he knows we know that it came from him, right? It wasn't just me. Just because I went to the store and bought it, or I went in the backyard and grew it, or what have you, that it's all my hands, my power. No, it's of the Most High. Your crops can't grow unless the Most High allow it to grow. The food ain't going to be there unless the Most High sanctions it to be there. It's not going to be nourishable for you unless the Most High bless that food. So that's how your mind has to think. Verse 28 again, that it might be known that we must prevent the sun to give thee thanks, and at the day spring pray unto thee, right? Because that was what we had to do back then in Exodus 16. It says, for the hope of the unthankful shall melt away as the winter hoar's frost, and shall run away as an unprofitable water. So as we read that and what we did back in Exodus 16 and how we followed the ordinance of the Lord and how we was fed and then we gave thanks, the unthankful, the ungrateful one, they didn't follow suit. Right? Their food wasn't proper. Their food got taken away. Right? So in today's times, it's the same thing. Is to say, listen, for the hope of the unthankful shall melt away in the winter's hoar frost. So those who are not in the Most High's mercy, those who don't follow his ways, they're like these unthankful. They're not thanking, they're not praising, they're not worshiping or following the Most High and giving him the glory. They're giving Caesar Borgia the glory. They're giving Muhammad the glory. They're giving the Metu, whatever 400 and some gods that's the Egyptian, they're giving them the glory of what they got. Their hope is going to get taken away swiftly and surely if it hasn't already been done. All right, it's going to get taken away. It says, and shall run away as an unprofitable water. Right, it's going to escape them where they thought that they had some source of income, some source of food, some source of comfort, protection. Done, gone. And what are they going to do? They're going to, you read Proverbs, the 1st chapter, the Most High said he's going to laugh when your calamity comes. Laugh. The God who's all love said, I'm going to sit back and have a riot because I gave you opportunities and you didn't want to hear it. I gave you chances and you squandered them. So now when it comes, when the grace and the mercy runs out and you standing there and then you want to come, I'm going to laugh at your calamity, right? That's how the Most High looks at it. So here it was mainly for the nation, the Egyptians. But moving forward, we know that some of us became Egyptians like today, right? Convincing us that we're Chpt and we're this and that. Some of us follow the modern day Egyptian philosophies from society today, following those same false gods. We're becoming like them, and we're going to suffer the same fate as what they suffered right along with them as a 2/3 portion of Israel joined with the nations. All right. So that concludes today's, or the second half, and concludes today's Sabbath service lesson. Water to those who dialed in, logged on, Salakia, or apologies for the interruptions that we had on the internet, on the stream. Like I said, Most High's will. Things are opening up now. We'll try to, get things being done back down at the school, and we'll judge that and then start getting back to the norm of going to camps and doing all these different things that we were doing in the past. Most High's will. So next week we'll be in the book of Deuteronomy. It said it's interesting that Kahana was going into this last night. I think we're in 27, 28. Let me just make sure. I believe it's Deuteronomy chapters 27, yes, and 28. So with that one, 28 chapter alone, so much meat in that 28th chapter. Say again? I believe it's Deuteronomy 27th and 28 chapters. 27, 28. Reminds me of I forget where I used to go. It's like you ever go to the amusement park and they sell you those big turkey legs, like roasted turkey legs. It's humongous. Like you used to watch Barney Rubble and used to eat these big turkey legs. That's what comes to mind when I'm looking at 27 and 28, because there's so much meat. It's like you got 2-3 big turkey legs to munch on and eat spiritually out of what's going on in those chapters, right? So many things you can pull out. All right. So with that, we're going to close out, set up the prayers. Again, as always, if you wrote down the scriptures or you had issues with what we brought out, or questions, write them down. Go back into it, bring it to the class on Tuesday or Friday, and we'll deep dive into it collectively and trying to, be in unison with our understanding. All right. So with that, Most High's will, everybody has a beautiful Sabbath, remaining Sabbath. Depending on where you are, we got people dialing in from different places. Be safe. I think this weekend in certain areas is certain businesses are said to be opening them back up. We'll see how that's going to go and how it's going to, what's happening out there. And then we'll start making conscious, wise movements and decisions on how we're going to proceed. But make sure everybody stay safe, stay wise, and stay girded up with the wisdom of the Most High. All right. So again, Ashar Shabbat, happy Sabbath. And everybody have a Tawab or blessed upcoming week. And we'll see each other or hear each other throughout the week. All right. Stay tuned for the closing prayers. Shalom Yashrala. Barakatha Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Nethalanah, Par Yahagapin, Thawada Aman, La Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Ath Yasha Allah. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, of the Most High, in the name of Christ, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. I Madwa Punyward Rosalind stand and face Jerusalem. Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Babakushai, Shemai, Lanawa, Aitha, Yum Yun, Aitha, Shalak, Mayaka Allah, Wahatazawadak, Alahayim, La, Shamar Isle, Barak, Rapah, Magun, Wahaasha, Kazak, Bunya, Yasha Allah, Washalak, Lanawa, Rabium Kakama, Rabium Da'ith, Rabium Bayana, Rabium Sabalanwath, Rabium Amawan, Rabium Aqua, Rabium Ahabium, Rabium Raknaya, Hagana, Wasalak, Ko, Kata Ayamnawa, Lahaakim, Wa Akiwath, Wayasha Allah, Thum Yad, Wa Iwalam, Bahasham, Yahawashai, Thawada Amun. English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, pleases it to us now, right now. Send Michael and the righteous powers of angels to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel. And send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection, and forgive all our sins for the brothers and sisters in Israel, always and forever. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you always and forever. So be it. Four Corners Prayer. Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Barak Nawa, Wayasha Allah, Wabath Yasaparim, Shema, Yasharallah, Yahweh, Allah, Hayanawa, Yahweh, Akkad. English translation. Most High, in the name of Christ, bless us in Israel and the house of books or schools. And also Deuteronomy 6:4, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our power is one Lord. Again, I say a happy Sabbath, Shar Shabbat, and Shalom or peace to all the brothers and sisters in Israel listening and watching on this line. Shalom.